Hello, and thank you for joining me. My topic today is going to be on refugees and asylum seekers, a review of possible traumatic experiences and possible interventions which counselors may encounter when they are treating these populations. Um, I was born and raised in California up until the age of 21 when I enlisted into the U.S. Navy. After completing my contract with the Navy, I went and got my associate's degree at Olympic College. After Olympic College, I transferred to Eastern University and got my degree in health psychology. Some of the material that we were going to be covering is going to be graphic. It may create some cultural conflicts, so I will not take it personal. If anybody needs to take a break, step away if you need be. Self-care is really important, especially when we're discussing difficult topics. A refugee is defined by the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees as a person who flees across an international border because of well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, or membership of a particular social group, and who is not able to seek or receive protection from their country of origin. The term asylum seeker refers to those awaiting decision about their refugee status. Refugees are defined by specific legal criteria, whereas asylum seekers refer to all people requesting refugees outside their home country. 65 million people are awaiting their decisions. Refugees have stressors derived from three different sources. First, their experience while living in their own country. Second are the difficulties they face during immigration. And third are the difficulties they must endure in their new country while trying to establish themselves and their families. Leaving a caregiver before or during an immigration process, being exposed directly to violence, observing parents panic and fear, and lack of feeding possibilities are all stressors that this population may encounter when transitioning to a new country. Being a refugee or seeking asylum radically transforms one's life, often by circumstances beyond one's control, which may lead to emotional and behavioral problems such as post-traumatic stress disorder, learning disorders, addictions, defiance, aggression, and hyperactivity. As counselors, we should be prepared to discuss openly with individuals all topics that may be affecting them directly or indirectly. Suicidal behavior has been significantly greater in refugees with PTSD. Patients with PTSD and comorbid depression report higher frequencies of suicide thoughts than non-depressives. Low and middle income countries are the major host nations for refugees. Often, these nations have poor infrastructure such as healthcare and political and economic instability. Hence, the arrival of refugees can threaten the availability of scarce and local resources. Western societies become more fearful, more suspicious, and openly prejudiced towards asylum seekers. An example of this phenomenon would be in 2017 when a protection order came out stating that the United States would no longer accept immigrants and refugees from 7 Muslim countries. A recent study interviewed 40 immigrants and refugees living in another country. They wanted to identify the main stressors and coping mechanisms in the post-migration phase. One of the themes identified in the data was related to perceived discrimination and prejudice, which led to a sense of exclusion from the mainstream society. If not prepared, clinicians may be unprepared to deal with the complexities involved in such therapeutic encounters. Language is not the only barrier in the provision of mental health services for this unique group. Cultural barriers exist both within the healthcare system and at the individual level. As counselors, we have the responsibility of assisting our clients with whatever needs they may have, whether that's helping them find outside professional resources or other types of community support. Not to mention, we have the responsibility of using practical therapeutic methods. An ethical approach to helping an asylum seeker or refugee would be creating a safety plan. Safety plans increase client awareness of triggers and coping strategies. A safety plan is a collaborative contract made by both the client and the counselor. Safety plans help develop protective factors. Safety plans can be difficult to create when clients are unable to meet one-on-one consistently with caseworkers. It makes it difficult to build rapport and establish that therapeutic relationship, which then leads to clients having issues discussing vulnerable conversations. A form of CBT is also an ethical approach to assisting refugees. NET, which is narrative exposure therapy, is similar to prolonged exposure, but differs in such a way that NET attempts to treat multiple traumatic events within a life trajectory. There are three parts of NET. The first part comprised a structured interview about the trauma. Second part involves the laying of a lifeline where the participants use flowers and stones to symbolize positive and traumatic events respectively. Step 3 involves a narrative exposure, which consists of narrating the life story across multiple sessions. Counselors emphasizing on creating a sense of psychological safety, regulating emotions, working on coping, and enhancing resiliency should consider combining the practice of art therapy and mindfulness meditation. These practices are good for recreating personal narratives, engaging the body, and working with trauma non-verbally. As counselors, we could volunteer at centers where refugees would be seeking resources. And if you do volunteer, give absolute positive regard. Not to mention, we do have a participation in the allocation of funds when we do vote for our political parties.